Hi y'all, how are you? Welcome to my channel. So excited. This is episode 1. This is a dream that's been in my heart for such a long time. Okay, so today, our first topic of discussion is a pretty big one. We're gonna talk about mom guilt today. We're going to talk about it because I think it's something that is almost normalized. And it's a lot of things that people do not understand. And I think that moms have different sorts of guilt everywhere. So mom guilt is real. How many memes do we see about it? How many people joke about it with their wine in their hands or, say like mom guilt is real? And it is. But here's the thing. There has to be some sort of realization and some real talk so that a mom doesn't just say like, haha, mom guilt is real, but has no tools to get through it when it's really hard. Being a mom is fucking hard. I also am going to swear on this channel, so sorry, not sorry. Being a mom is so hard. From the moment that you pee on that little stick, nobody mentioned that like pretty much from that point on, like you're on your own, sis. And you figure it out. And you can read all these things and compare yourself, which we're going to talk about, to all these Pinterest moms and all these things. But no one talks to us about it. And so I think when we feel inadequate, guilt is able to set in because it's an area that we're not confident in. And I think that continues through motherhood time and time again. Stay-at-home mom, you have this feeling of I have to clean the house and I have to do the dinner and I have to be good and I have to be calm because I have all the time in the day and everybody just thinks that I just get to like put myself together in the morning and laugh and lay on the couch and like read stories, and it's not like that. And if you're a work from home mom, then you have this guilt of like I'm in the house and feel like I should be spending time with you, but I actually have to get this work done if I want to build this income in this business or a company or whatever you're doing from home. And then if you're a mom that works outside of the home, my gosh, I had that life for so long, and I remember just being like, I'm just not there. Like, I wish that I would have had some of the frustrations that I now have as a stay-at-home mom. Weird how life works out like that, but I just wasn't there. And I assume that having an idea that someone else is getting your babe snuggles or things like that can make you feel really guilty too. And so I just think that there's different avenues, there's different lanes, there's different degrees of this mom guilt. But at the end of it, no matter if you're a working mom, outside the home, work from home, like me, or a stay-at-home mom, we are awesome. And we do the very best we can. And at the end of the day, in our family and in our child's mind, that is all that matters. They don't see everything else. They don't see the messy house. They don't see the oodles and noodles for the 5th time this week. They don't see the extra 30 pounds. They don't see, everything that we are so hard on ourselves for. They don't see it. And so we have to know as a foundation and as a base. And what I hope we can create this muscle memory to come back to, I am good and I am worthy and I am so good just doing the very best that we can. And then we're going to break into some of the things that we all do and kind of tools to like be better. Because if you don't know, then you can't change it. But once you know, then your ignorance is a choice. It's a choice not to work on it or develop and grow. That's what I'm here for. Like that's really what I want to be here for. I have walked a road really hard and through some traumatic stuff. And at the end of the day, I've had this capability to put it in such a different perspective, learn from it and grow from it, and then be able to kind of speak on it. It's something that God planted into my heart and something that I am just now at 32 years old starting to celebrate. And I want that for you too. I want that pull on your heart to be something that you celebrate once we start walking through life together. So one of the biggest things that I do, and some of the biggest things that I heard from some of the ladies, is rage and yelling, right? And then they fall asleep and they look like these perfect little angels. And you're like, oh my God, how did I just talk to them today? Why did I do that? Why? They don't know. They're 4, they're 3, they're 9, they're 5, they're 16. And here's the thing. We have so many fucking plates spinning that it's only logical that we lose our shit, okay? It's only logical that we lose our shit. But why? How many plates are we spinning? What can we pull apart? What can we take down before it happens? And that's what I try when I lay down and I get that mom guilt, and immediately it sets in and you just feel awful and you're like, I'm the worst. And the devil just creeps in and he just works on all those insecurities and he makes it seem so real for you. Here's what I do. I take back that situation. I'm going to say that most of the time that we lose it, we've asked very kindly 7 times to do something, right? And then that 8th time, it's like Psycho and Batman all rolled into one. It plays differently in our mind whenever we look at them sleeping and they look like this amazing little human being. We need, as moms, to know that it's okay to lose our shit. It's okay, all right? And it's okay to feel bad about it. It's okay to feel bad about it because that's what's brought us here, right? We know that we have felt bad. So we want to kind of work through the process of like, okay, I felt that, so I don't want to do it again. But I think where we get caught up with mom guilt is that it happens over and over again. And when you constantly feel that, it just wears on you. That negative feeling of yourself just constantly wears on you. So here's the thing. I grew up in a home where I didn't hear, I'm sorry, and I didn't hear, hey, I was wrong. I didn't hear that. And so for so long, I internalized that it was my fault. And that was really hard as a kid because I didn't even if somebody did something completely wrong to me, like hit me or say something ugly to me, I immediately went to, what did I do wrong? It was me. I did it. It was me. And so the first thing that I do all the time is that I apologize to my kids. I pull them down and I say, hey, I'm sorry. That behavior was wrong. And you don't deserve to be spoken to like that. And I'm sorry. And I'm going to try to be better. And I also take a moment in that time to say, hey, can we talk about this with my 9-year-old especially? I have apologized. I've said I was wrong. I said it was a mistake and that I would try to be better. That means something to them, even if they don't totally understand it. And the best thing is that in that moment that we say I'm sorry, our kids are like, it's okay, mom. Like, here we are killing ourselves and so wrapped up and so emotionally invested in this awful thing that we did. And they're like the most resilient creatures in the world. But I say that I'm sorry and I recognize that I'm wrong and I tell them that I'm wrong and I tell them that I'm going to try to be better. And then I try to break down the situation that we were in. An example, Aiden, he moves sometimes super slow. Hey, come on, it's got time to go. Hey, come on, it's time to go. Hey, come on, it's time to go. I said it, and then you lose it and he comes down and he looks at you like, oh my gosh. So I'll say to him like, hey, can we work through this together? Do you remember when I called on you? He's like, yeah. Okay, did you hear me call the first time? He might say yes or no. Did you hear me call the second time? Yeah. Did you hear me call the third time? Yeah. Okay. So in that moment that you're watching TV, or maybe you were trying to get your coat on or grab your backpack, or you were in the process, what I need from you is for you to do that little call down of, hear ya. Just that little bit of acknowledgement that you hear me. So I'm not sitting down here and that little cartoon thermometer is about to freaking bust because I call and wait, and I call and wait, and I call and wait. And by that 4th call, I'm not waiting anymore. Your butt is going to be moving when I end that sentence. And if him and I can work through that together, when I'm calmed down, he's not upset, I can say, can you see where I'm coming from? Even as an adult. Can you see where I'm coming from? Do you see how that would be frustrating? Sometimes I'll say, hey, I put in a case scenario of him and Grace. I'm like, if you were doing this to Grace and you had to say this many times, how would you feel by the 4th or 5th time that you've said it? And he can understand. And so the next time that happens, or the next time that we get heated like that, I will say, hey bro, remember what we talked about? Yeah, mom. Yeah. Okay. Just give me that little bit of acknowledgement. And it doesn't happen like that all the time. And I'm not saying that y'all need to know. Most of the people that are going to watch this know me already. And so you kind of have a background of who I am. And then new people you're going to get to know. I am not perfect. I'm not going to sit here and be like, well, this is what I do and it works. No, it always changes. We're always adapting and we're always changing as a mom, always. But these are things that I've done to create a healthy coping mechanisms and boundaries in my family. I am just starting to develop healthy coping mechanisms. I didn't have them ever. And so that's the most important thing. I'm willing to admit that I'm wrong, and I'm willing to come off my pedestal as a mom, to admit that I've made mistakes, and to admit that I'm wrong and that I'm not perfect and not a do as I say, not as I do kind of person, so that my kids can develop healthy coping mechanisms and also healthy boundaries. I hope that by saying, hey, I'm really sorry. I don't care if they're 2 years old, y'all. Hey, mom's really sorry. Mommy's really sorry. That's going to be something that they hear, okay? And so when our children start dating or getting in relationships with friends, and those friends might not be the best people, and they don't apologize, and they say that they're not wrong, and they blame the other person for everything, our kids are going to be able to be like, this isn't healthy. This doesn't feel good. And so they'll be able to separate themselves and have some perspective. That's my hope. And admitting that I'm wrong and apologizing. And I think that that's really powerful. So let's talk about this. Let's talk about the buildup, okay? When I was talking about the plate spinning. So if you are trying to cook dinner, Pinterest style, trying to lose the weight, celebrity style, trying to keep the house, Pinterest style, trying to keep the groceries, Whole Foods style, and then still trying to deal with kids that don't give a shit about any of that, I feel like if we can as mothers start to address the buildup, we're tired, we're overworked, without jobs. We're tired and we're overworked without jobs. And I think that it comes to that we're not sleeping well, we're not drinking water, we're not moving our body, we don't talk to ourselves nicely. It can all come from this buildup. I don't think that when our kid spills a glass of milk and it's like a total calm day, we lose our shit. It's the days that it's hard days, and a lot of mothering days are really hard. And I think that that's something we're scared to admit, that we're having a hard time, and we've been having a hard time for 2 weeks or 3 years or however long. And I think that some of that is just admitting that it's hard. And it's also finding community, which I hope to bring. Finding community of moms that are going through the same things, but are also ballsy enough to talk about it. I think as women, I was just listening to a podcast of Ed Milet and Rachel Hollis, both amazing. And they were talking about the value of where we find our value as women. And I think that it's becoming more of a subject that's talked about now. But how little girls are raised compared to how little boys are raised are completely different. And something that kind of hit me in the gut when I was listening to this podcast was that as a little girl, you're taught and we're brought up to find value in serving others or doing things. We find our value from other people. A lot of times it was like, okay, well, do what you're going to do, find your husband, start your family, and that's where your value starts. And then if you are having trouble finding value in those areas, then it's like, well, something's clearly wrong with me. And I think that we need to address how we have been raised in the homes that we've been raised in, but also just as women in general. All the things, y'all. All the things that bring us value from external, right? But when those things aren't there, what do we do then? And so I think starting to think about, who am I outside of mom and wife? I've always been Caitlin. I've always been trying to achieve, good things and great things and go to school and study and be an athlete and all that. But who are we outside of the title of mom and wife? Maybe you haven't asked yourself that for so long. And maybe you need to start thinking about what brings you joy outside of being a mom and a wife. And having those outlets so that you can be you and get recharged and then walk back into the battlefield of being a mom and conquer that. I have a hair on my tongue, that's weird. Like, where did that even come from? I think that matters. You know, I started this, I work from home. I'm a network marketer, and I started it for extra money. But the reason why I am fearlessly and unapologetically able to talk about it is because it was something that brought me passion and purpose. It was something outside of the roles of mom and wife that I was able to do and find that feeling of, oh, this feels good. You know, working out, that's another thing. Cooking might be it for you if you love to cook. Writing might be for you. You know, going to a dance class might be good for you. Maybe you love to sing. And so hitting up a karaoke bar or singing in a choir may be something that's good for you. But I think for so long we burn the candle at any way it will light, and we work it so hard because, let's be honest, we compare ourselves. And comparison is the thief of joy. I heard that in church years ago, but I recently just heard from Rachel Hollis that it takes motivation. It takes your energy. Comparison takes everything away from us. And so here we are, like keeping humans alive and cooking dinner and keeping the house clean and having sex with our husbands and working a business and being a physical therapist and all these things. And if you don't, you know, excel at a 10 out of 10 at all of them, then like, sorry, like, did you see Susie over there? She dropped her plate. It's more about being accountable and understanding why you feel the way that you feel. Maybe it's a lack of communication with your husband. Maybe he's one that doesn't help. Maybe he's one that gets an easy pass, that he works his job and he comes home and dinner's served and then cleaned up and he gets to watch TV or play video games or be the fun dad, and you're here over there and you know you haven't showered today and your boobs hang down to your belly and you know you're just like, what the fuck is this life? What is this life? And how did I get here? I think that's totally normal. I also think it's an indication that we need to find something that makes us happy. Brings us joy, not happy, joy. And if it's that choir, what? Huh? Choir? Go join a choir, sis. Family won't die without you there for a few hours. And if that means that your significant other needs to step up, then that needs to be a conversation that you need to have. I think that addressing why we feel the way that we do before we blow our gasket is very important. And it will probably make you feel uncomfortable, and it will probably make you feel crappy first. And then bringing that, whatever it is, out into the light, I can guarantee you that it will not be scary once it's out in the light. Probably admitting it is going to be the hardest thing that we do. But you can do that, girl. You can do that because you now have a community around you that are doing it too. But if we can raise babies and push a set of shoulders out of our vagina, y'all, we can do anything. For real. We can do anything. We can do hard things. And I think being honest with ourselves is number one. I think communication is another one. Communication with other moms, communication with your husband, significant other, communication with your kids. Having a clear set idea of, hey, today is going to be busy. Today, mom needs to do X, Y, and Z. Today, this is what our day is going to look like. And so in those times when shit's starting to hit the fan, you can bring it back down and say like, hey, I told y'all that today this, and this needs to get done. And it probably will seem a little bit more scheduled. It will probably seem a little bit more forced, but until that becomes part of your routine, that's okay. But routines take consistency, and routines take discipline, and they take effort. And so again, coming back to the accountability of it is like, are you somebody that wants what we're talking about, but you're not willing to put in the work? Well, why aren't you willing to put in the work? Why does that seem hard? Why does addressing yourself and things that feel uncomfortable, why is that hard? Is that something that comes back from the way that you were raised? Does that come back from the relationship with your husband? Does that come from a relationship with an ex-husband or an ex-wife? You know what I'm saying? Like sometimes we just feel the way that we feel, and because we feel the way that we feel like it must be the real thing that we feel. When in reality, we can genuinely train the way that we think, and we can interrupt those ugly, nasty, I call them Deborah thoughts. I put a voice to the ugly voice in my head. I've put a name to her. Her name's Deborah. And I envision her standing in front of me saying all these ugly things. Again, Rachel Hollis. I just came from a conference, so I was probably going to like just... But why? Why? Like addressing Deborah, addressing those Deborah thoughts, you can interrupt them. They don't have to just play. As soon as you start hearing like, see, like, gosh, you know, Casey is just such a better mom than you. She cooks homemade dinners. You can stop that thought and be like, fuck you, Deborah. Sit down. You don't get to talk. You actually do not get to speak to me like that today. And you interrupt that of like, that's great that Casey makes her homemade meals. That's awesome. My kids are eating McDonald's and they're satisfied. And that's okay. You get to interrupt those thoughts. We're more in control of our thoughts than we think. And I think that really helps us in our mom guilt, because we know that anytime a friend comes and talks to us as another mom and she says all these things, what's the first thing that we do? Girl, stop, you're being so hard on yourself. You're a good mom. Your kids are happy. Your kids treat other kids kindly. You know? Your kids are safe. They're taken care of. You're a good mom. So why do we have such trouble doing that with ourselves? I think it's because we don't take the time to think about, why did I explode? And then figuring out, okay, I know why I exploded. So why does that happen? Is that something that I've just never addressed? Is that something that my mom did? Is that something that my dad did? Is it because you're genuinely unhappy in some areas of your life, and instead of dealing with that, you just have a low fuse? I genuinely really believe that the more accountable that we can become for our thoughts and for our actions, the more that we have control, and the more that we have an ability to slow down and work through those tools that we have. So you blew up, okay? Let's go and talk to them a couple minutes later and say that we're sorry and that we were wrong and that we made a mistake and that they don't deserve to be spoken to like that, and that you're going to try to be better. And then you're going to walk into that situation and say, let's try to see this from both sides. Can you see can you see why mommy got so frustrated? I handled the situation completely wrong, but can you see why I got frustrated? Okay, next time, let's work on that together. Stop comparing yourself. If that means you need to get off social media, do it. If that means you need to unfollow certain people on social media, do it. Here's another thing. You have control on who's on your social media. Start filling it with inspirational people. Start filling it with the Rachel Hollises of the world who talk real talk. Start filling it with the Ed Miletts and people that, speak life into you. Start filling it with people that you enjoy being around. You have a choice to do that. So let's address our comparison. Let's address why we're comparing ourselves to other people. Why do we feel inadequate? Because you're not. No matter what. No matter what. Even if in this season you gain 30 pounds and and you're using alcohol to numb, or maybe you smoke weed at night, or maybe your relationships are in turmoil and this has just been the worst 365 days of your life. It is true that those are justified reasons. I get that, and I hear you. I get that it's justified. But what is it doing for you? Because if it isn't serving you, and if it's putting anchors on your feet, then we got to do something about it. And I believe that you're strong enough to do it. I believe that you're smart enough to do it. I believe that you're capable of doing it. And more than anything, you are worthy of feeling good and feeling as a good mom. Sometimes in those moments that I feel the most mom guilt and they're sleeping, I go over there and I kiss them on the cheek and I whisper, I love you. And the first thing in the morning, I go over and I say, good morning, I love you. Taking a step away too, if you have little ones, mom guilt was real on those little ones, on the younger years. And I would just separate myself. just separate myself and collect my thoughts and think about, okay, how do I want today to go? Right? Maybe that means you need to rearrange your schedule, because maybe some of it is that your son just wants to play and you just don't have the time. You just don't have the energy. So maybe we need to rearrange the schedule. It's okay to say no to things, to people. It's okay. And maybe you need to do that a little bit more. So stop comparing. Stop comparing. I want you to really think about the last time you felt mom guilt, why it happened, when it happened, what was happening before, what happened after. And I want you to start really thinking about what that looks like. Because I guarantee the reasons and the answers why we feel and do the things that we do, they're right there. They're just not easy to look at. And I hope that you walk away from that situation being like, you know what, that I did handle that situation wrong, but looking at it in this clear perspective during the day instead of at night and letting all those ugly thoughts just pile and pile and pile, it looks different. And so, yeah, I handled it wrong, but I wasn't a monster. You know, I tell my kids all the time, I'm like, I'm not perfect. I'm never gonna be perfect. And yes, I yell, and yes, I curse. And sometimes with anxiety and depression, the way that I have it in my life, my kids see me sob for no reason. And I get terrified sometimes that they're gonna be sad for no reason because of me, or seeing their mom cry and sob is gonna really fuck them up. But this is my family. It's your family. They don't have another mom and dad except you. And if at the end of the day we are honest and we are kind and we are willing to change the things that we don't love, I think we're gonna be the perfect parents that we wanna be, and the perfect parents in our kids' eyes. And I think that it starts with us, moms. We deserve to be somebody outside of the title. And we also need to do the hard work of addressing ourselves and figuring out why we feel the way that we do. Let's talk about this too, to kind of end our first episode. Judgment is something that none of us want done on us. This fear of failing and this fear of judgment. Let me tell you, I'm a young mom. 32, I have a 9 and a 5-year-old. I got pregnant at 22. I had my son at 23. Here's the thing. We can't fail. If we're trying and you're watching this and you feel the mom guilt, you're not failing. You can't fail as a mom or a dad. You can't fail unless you give up, and I don't think any of us are giving up on our. In fact, you're putting yourself out there to either search in YouTube for, what we're talking about here, or you've, seen me on social media and thought I could use somebody just talking about that. That means you're not failing. Failure is my jam. I've had a past of failure. And before I let it just bury me so awfully and so deep and so dark within myself that it took me a while to get out. But now we have to understand, and I want you to understand, and I want you to try to really hear this and listen. It's the exact something that got me to start this channel. Your failure is the exact reason why you're equipped and qualified to walk through what you're walking through. We fail as moms momentarily. Yeah. I got told the other day that my son wasn't going to be able to go out to recess because he didn't have a winter coat. Well, he doesn't have a winter coat because he grew 12 inches in 5 days. And I just haven't had time to go and get him a coat. Fail. So today, we found an inner layer of a coat that works, and we put a hoodie underneath it, and he had hat and gloves on, and I was like, you tell your teacher that mom's going to Kohl's today and you won't have a winter coat. We fail momentarily. But we can't fail our kids. We can't fail our kids as long as we're showing up for them. And doing some of the stuff that we talked about earlier, like addressing yourself and apologizing and admitting that you're wrong, Y'all, we're so ahead of the game. From the generations before us, we're so ahead of the game. You can't fail at this. Maybe you have somebody, maybe your child's struggling and that makes you feel like you're failing. Or maybe your son or daughter has a diagnosis and that has brought this fear of failure into you. You're not alone. You're never alone. And you just need to find some community. Because as much as you're dying for somebody to validate what you're going through and validate that you're not sinking and drowning, there are millions of women that feel the same way. And if you have the courage to speak up and go look for it, you're going to find those people that you can walk life with and walk life with authentically. And y'all will be each other's life preservers. Judgment. I could just wrap this up very quickly about judgment. The people that judge you for whatever you're doing, they have no room in your home. And they don't get to take your energy. Hurt people hurt people. What you're doing right now by listening to somebody and taking some notes on, how to walk through this, you're not that person. You would never speak that way to somebody else because you know what you're struggling with. And if you're struggling with what you're struggling with, then definitely somebody else is struggling. So those that have the audacity to judge you or say this or have different opinions, you have to know in the core of who you are that is a reflection and a representation of them and not of you. How do you do it? You block them. You avoid them. You say, you don't get to talk to me like that. You unfriend them. You unfriend them in real life. Maybe it's a family member. You might have to have that hard conversation. But you may have to say, you don't get to speak to me like this anymore. That is your opinion that you don't agree. This is my life and my children. And I'm doing the very best that I can. And if you can't respect that, you don't get to be a part of this. Period. Say that in the mirror a few times. You will feel different. Our words have power. I want you to speak to yourself kindly after you hop off this. I want you to look in the mirror and say that you're amazing and you're sexy and you have a great ass and your boobs, they're not sagging. They're exactly where they need to be. That you're worthy and that you're loved and that you're capable and that you're beautiful and that you're strong and that you're a fucking warrior. To push these kids out and then selflessly live for them every single day? Hell yeah. You're a badass and you're a good person. I want you to speak those words to you myself. It saved my life to change the conversation that I had going on in my head. Judging yourself. Ugh. That judging is coming from that comparison. That judging is coming because you really believe that someone else is doing this better than you or that you're just not doing it good enough. And that's going to change when you start talking to yourself differently. And that's going to change when you start addressing where it's coming from, where the screaming's coming from, where the thoughts are coming from. That judgment will ease. Listen, I don't know what your religion, your faith is or whatever. The idea of having this loving, open, crazy depths of understanding relationship with Christ is new to me. He is a loving God. And he believes and sees you perfectly. So anything that is different than that, it's not coming from him. And those are lies that we tell ourselves, and those are lies of the enemy, because if he can keep you distracted and he can keep you running and not feeling good enough, then you're never going to be able to live to the potential that you were created to be. And that's what he wants. He doesn't want you to be cool and awesome and like full maximum potential. He doesn't want that, because then you change the world. He doesn't want that either. The next time you have an ugly thought, know where it's coming from. It's not coming. It's not coming from up there, and it's not coming from who you really believe you are. It's coming from the lies that you've been told your entire life. Maybe lies that you've been telling yourself your entire life. And now we know that we can interrupt those Deborah thoughts, and we can tell her to shut the fuck up. And now we can dismiss ourselves from the comparison game. Because the thing is with comparison is that you'll never get where you want to go. Because as soon as you get to where Sally is, Jane is going to be looking so good. And then you're going to kill yourself to get to where Jane is. And then Betty is just going to look like bomb. It's never going to stop. So dismiss yourself from it. Dismiss yourself from the comparison game and start being super, super real and super, super honest with yourself on how many plates you're spinning, communication or lack thereof, and where this stems from. And write it all down. Doesn't have to make sense, just write it down. And then go back and start pulling it apart. And work on one thing, not all the things. We tend to do that as moms. Work on one thing. And before you close your eyes, tell yourself that, oh my gosh, I worked on me today. I took time for me today. And that felt good. And then close your eyes and get some bomb ass sleep. I love you guys. Thank you so much for jumping on here. We're gonna have we're gonna have so much content. It's not all just gonna be for moms. We're gonna talk as women. We're gonna raise each other up, and we're gonna have fun here. And I hope that you find encouragement, and I hope that you got some real talk. I hope that some of the things that I said punched you in the gut. I love you, but I hope it did. So, welcome to the Faithfully Fit community. Episode 1 done.